I've kept being intrigued by these 9.2 inches Mark 10 guns, the secondary guns of Lord Nelson class. And I did a reflection, a study. I put these guns side by side with the 12 inches 45 caliber Mark 10, the main guns that were used both in Lord Nelson and the Dreadnought. Now, in terms of the range, the range would have been around 14 kilometers for the 9.2 inches and 17 kilometers, even 18 kilometers for 12 inches for the main gun. But the main source here being the site that I study so much, the navwebs.com, and I did a study on ChatGPT, and it says 27 kilometers for the 9.2 inches, which is totally out of range here. Is I think the 14 kilometer is more appropriate. However, the ChatGPT says 15 kilometers for 12 inches. So the big gun is something like 15 or 16 kilometers depending on the type of projectile. 15 or 16 kilometers. And the smaller guns, the 9.2 inches, is anyway at 14 kilometers. So just a tad bit shorter range than the main gun, than the 12 inches. So then, because I couldn't escape this gut feeling of mine that those 9.2 inches guns together, working together, would have meant something. They should have meant something in a confrontation, say, two Lord Nelsons, like Lord Nelson and Agamemnon, against Dreadnought, or against later German Dreadnought battleship. Those 9.2 inches should have counted for something. I'm not prepared to accept the idea that automatically Dreadnought by herself, being so evolved, is able to sink both Lord Nelson and Agamemnon in a hypothetical naval battle, naval confrontation. I'm not prepared, I don't see it this way. My gut feeling says those 9.2 inches were much too valuable to not have had a deep impact on Dreadnought, against Dreadnought. Yes. Now, on a broadside, the combined broadside of Lord Nelson and Agamemnon would have been 8 12-inchers and 10 9.2 inchers. And the broadside from Dreadnought would have been 8 or 10, I don't remember, 12 inchers. So very comparable anyway with with Lord Nelson and Agamemnon. Again, on one side we have 10 main guns and 10 9.2 inches guns from Lord Nelson and Agamemnon. And on the other side we only have 10 main guns from Dreadnought. There is no equivalent on Dreadnought for the powerful 9.2 inches, which incidentally is able to fire at almost the same range as the main guns. Is like Lord Nelson and Agamemnon doubled their main armament for the same range, but with lighter shells. Lighter shells. So this is interesting. Keep in mind the previous British class, also qualified as a semi-dreadnought, was the King Edward VII, and they only had 2 9.2 inches guns on a broadside. Lord Nelson had 5, and a bit later French semi-dreadnoughts, the Danton class, had 6 9.4 inches at the broadside. So the thing is, both British and French navies, they associated some real value to these 9 inches, 9.2, 9.4 inches guns, having this long range capability, 14 kilometers versus 15 or 16 kilometers from the main guns. So I'm sorry to say it, but in terms of firepower, at below, let's say, 14 kilometers, the Dreadnought would have been inferior. The Dreadnought would have been inferior. And who is to say that the Dreadnought could have stayed out beyond 14 kilometers because it has superior speed and is able to choose the range? But for the Dreadnought to be able to put shells, to put hits on Lord Nelson and Agamemnon, it has to come inside, because of those dates, 1908, 1910, 1912, they didn't fire. The guns were able to fire 15, 16 kilometers, but the fire control systems were not able to find a proper firing solution for these ranges. So the Dreadnought has to come inside 14 kilometers, perhaps even closer than 10 or 12 kilometers, where it would have been subjected to a hail of fire from main and secondary guns from Lord Nelson and Agamemnon. And in these conditions, for the same type of crew, for the same quality of crew, and supposing that the machinery was adequate and well maintained on both sides, I don't think Dreadnought will even sink one of them, of Lord Nelson or Agamemnon, before being heavily damaged itself. So this is only my gut feeling. My gut feeling. Of course, Dreadnought was not intended to operate alone. But this whole exercise, this hypothetical battle, in my mind, is important because what actually happened or was about to happen, and it's important because of the role these two ships, Agamemnon and Lord Nelson, played in the second part of the First World War, in the second part of the Great War, when they were put to guard the straits in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea against one single dreadnought, the battle cruiser Goeben, the German Goeben, which was in Istanbul, and it could have get out from the Sea of Dardanelles through the straits and attack the ships and the trade and whatever was on water in half of the Mediterranean Sea. So this Goeben was such a danger for the Allies, and they put Lord Nelson and Agamemnon at the mouth of the straits to guard. So you have these two semi-dreadnoughts to guard against one dreadnought. It was not really a real dreadnought because it didn't have the armor of dreadnought, but it was still from the dreadnought family. This Goeben was a fast battle cruiser. Very interesting, but we'll come back to this exercise later on in this series. So very interesting conclusion. These two ships, two semi-dreadnoughts, as nobody talks about them today, I think they were quite capable to keep themselves to fight in good conditions against one dreadnought. Now I think the booms are pretty much ready to be installed. The short one comes on this side, on starboard side, and the long one on the port side. Why they were not equal, God only knows. There must have been a reason. Not for stupid people like me to know. I think this is close to the proper position. Okay, we'll leave it dry. And these are the two long pieces, the protections I was talking about, the D39. D39, I have to cut them first. And if this is the correct position for the island, if you look at the instructions, they come this way. This one, the little hole here is towards the end, towards the rear of the ship. And apparently they come on top of these things. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the instructions. They apparently come on top of these. Do they really come on top of these? The first flash shows they come on top of this, and the second flash, if you look the other side, they should come in front of those pieces. And I was pretty sure it's gonna ruin my booms that I just installed. Of course. Not happy at all about this. Yeah, they come in front of those 4 things. What's worse, they don't match the length in there. If you put them like this to match the first edge, there is at least 1 millimeter of clearance of space between the piece and the last edge here at the end. Not happy at all about this one. They will come like this. I try to look at step 10 again to see the final position. What should be the final position? Apparently this is the final position. But really they are shorter that then they should be. They're shorter. What to do, what to do. Anyway, I will meditate about this one and see how can I mitigate this situation. I shouldn't have installed the booms, that's for sure. First I should have installed these pieces. Anyway, I'll think about this. I managed to do the first one, but it was quite not fun. I'll try to do the second one. Something like this. Of course the second one went much faster, much easier than the first one. I'm not sure I'm at the right position though. I should be quite okay. I'm gonna leave it like this and I'm gonna re-glue the booms. This one is not perfect here. And of course it doesn't want to change position anymore. I'm gonna leave it like this. Let's put the booms back in their position. the other end of the boom will not stay in position, so I'll have to apply some glue in there and to bring it back. Okay, for this one the same idea. This one is not perfect, and I did a bit of a mess with the paint. Anyway, this is about it with this step 8 and the island. I think we are quite okay with this one. Should be okay for now. Thank you for watching.